Hi Aries, welcome to your April 2025 AstroTarot with me, Raphael from Reydiant Reality. It's an absolute pleasure to have you. So, April is a relatively quiet month. There's really not a lot happening, and to be honest with you, after the absolute insanity that was March, I'm fairly certain we're all okay with that, right? After an absolute crescendo of a month, which we will all probably still be reeling from, working through, working over for some time to come, this is a moment for us to really relax and to recuperate. There is movement, but nothing as intense or as over the top as sort of last month. If anything, this month really is about catching your breath, stepping back, observing how things really unfold, right? So March's eclipse in Virgo, the last new moon solar eclipse in Aries, which was your sign, right, for a good decade at this point. Well, it's like 9 years. And the beginning of Neptune's era in the sign of Aries, right? So all of this stuff that's taken place has set into motion powerful sort of shifts and changes that are going to now start to unfold. Now is the time where the dust is going to settle, and it's also a time for you to really trust the process. Welcome to your Astro Tarot. My name is Raphael, and I am an astrologer, tarot reader, numerologist, and energy worker. For those of you that would like to know, I am always using whole sign tropical Western astrology. And whenever I'm talking about astrology, you want to look at your ascendant sign first. It's going to be the most accurate for you on that day-to-day level. With that said, if I ever forget to give you the dates or the degrees of a transit, you will be able to find all of that stuff in the description of the video. And just to let you know, I am back at the table doing Zoom sessions once more. So if you want to book a reading with me, you can do so on the links in the description box below. With that said, let's get straight into it. So the first transit that I want to explore for you, Aries, is the conjunction between Mercury and the North Node. Now, I've put the 11th here, but in truth, it actually starts to apply on the 9th of April, and it's going to work its way right through to like over the course of the 11th, right? So this is happening in the sign of Pisces, which for you represents your 12th house. So let's have a look at this, right? Bear with me just a second. Okay, so here's the board or the chart, whichever way you want to look at it. Mercury is going to come into a conjunction with the North Node here in the sign of Pisces in your 12th house. This alignment really does bring a fated message or a communication that's likely tied to your past, right? And why do I say that? So we've got Mercury, the planet of communication, conversation. I've totally forgotten to bless my cards as well. Before we start, as always, I would like to bless my decks of cards with all forms of love, light, peace, prosperity, and abundance. And I pray that the messages that come through are ultimately clear and concise. They help you on your path to your highest vibrational good. So I'm going to pop these to the side. And I'm going to give these a shuffle so that they are ready. These will be for your lunations. And we're going to start here. So the first transit that we're exploring, Mercury in the sign of Pisces, conjunct the North Node. Now, truth be told, this is the third one of these that we've had, right? So Mercury will have passed Pisces. It retrograded back past the North Node and then went forward again. And at this point, it's now going to cross over the North Node for the third time. So this is where we're going to start to see what the results are of that connection that's happened. Like this is the third time, as I say, right? Because Mercury went retrograde. Now, it's in your 12th house. The 12th house is the past. The 12th house is your psyche, but it's the base of your psyche. And more importantly, the 12th house the 12th house is what I like to call the house in the chart that houses your personal door to the other side, right? It's a very subconscious, very sort of liminal space in the chart where, you know, things aren't necessarily tangible. Now, Mercury for you rules your third house of communications, conversations, your mind, conversations, speech, etc. But Mercury for you also rules your sixth house of your day-to-day work and environment, your routines, your habits, patterns, all of that. Mercury as the ruler of your third house of communication and your sixth house of work and routines, Virgo, this might have a work-related undertone, or it might even involve unfinished business in some way. Since the 12th house is the house of the unconscious, the subconscious, should we say, the self-undoing, it does suggest either a psychic or intuitive edge to the messages. If you've been with me long enough, you will have heard me say I actually really like Mercury in the 12th because it makes us more psychic and it definitely enhances our telepathic abilities, which, you know, Neptune is now in Aries, so we're going to be seeing a lot of this stuff moving forward. You may sort of gain sudden clarity about what you like, what or who you trust. But keep an open mind, Aries, right? Like, this is a time for you to really keep an open mind, because whatever messages are coming from soul and psyche and spirit, or from the other realm, you know, whatever you perceive to be there, they might, you know, especially because this is a North Node conjunction. So this is trying to bring something into your world. It's trying to highlight something to you in a really big way. This could relate to a trip or travel plans as well. That's possible. Where details might still feel a little bit hazy or sort of what's the word, like a little bit unclear, just because it is Mercury in Pisces, right? Mercury in Pisces is not necessarily in its best space. Be mindful of how you approach situations that leave you feeling sort of somewhat hemmed in some way. It's really not a time to cut corners either, all right? This is something that I want you to be really, really clear on. The details matter now more than ever. So for this, you've got the Seven of Swords. Wow, okay, then you've got the King of Wands. That is literally you, Aries, and then you've got the Chariot card. So there's a few things that I want to say to you here, right? The first one that I think is really important to mention is that Seven of Swords, right? So this is Mercury, planet of communication, conjunct the North Node in the 12th house. The 12th house, although it's not the 8th house, which is occulted, the 12th house is a house of secrets as well. And I wouldn't be surprised if some piece of information that comes out now, some piece of news, some piece of information, there's a reason I say news, right? You've got the Seven of Wands, you've got the Chariot card, which is the original number 7. 2 sevens represents news. You've got this, the King of Wands. King of Wands is literally, quite literally you. So whether you're a man or a woman, however you identify as irrelevant, this is you, right? So some very personal piece of information comes to light, comes up, is shared with you, around you, to you, etc. I think that's going to make a really big difference, and it will see you. I mean, remember, the Chariot card is a victory and success card, so it will be pertinent information that you're able to use or to do something with. But it also has the potential to be something that really makes you feel like, oh, okay, you know what? I am not letting this one go, right? Like, now that I know this, now that I have this experience, there's no fucking way I'm letting this go. So it's going to be an interesting one for sure. So on the 12th of April, here's an interesting one. The Sun, I haven't got a thingy here for Chiron, but the Chiron is currently in the sign of Aries, and it's going to conjunct the Sun in your first house. The Sun is the ruler of your 5th house, right? Because the Sun rules Leo. This is your self-expression, your joy, your creativity, is meeting Chiron in your first house of identity and self. And so this transit, just like the Sun, may illuminate old wounds, but also offer powerful insights for healing. You might come across this and think to yourself like, wow, you know what? Now that I understand some personal wound about my self-expression or about my creativity or about how much joy and pleasure I'm actually able to experience. Now that I understand this past experience that I've had, I'm able to really sort of understand what my own inner child and inner essence really is asking me for. This could also be a time where a rift with a child, if you've got one, if you've got children, a child of your creativity, such as your business, because the fifth house represents a personal business or an entrepreneurial venture, begins to heal, right? It might also reveal that like, the secret to your healing lies in laughter, in joy, in embracing life's sort of simple pleasures. It could even be that spending time with or around your children at this time really helps you mend some kind of rift that you have with them. What comes through now might be bittersweet, tears mingled with smiles in some way, but it holds the promise of a deep sense of inner freedom. Let yourself really learn and embrace the gift that comes through vulnerability, right? This is a time for you to really sort of understand that inner self, that inner child. Now, for this, you've got the Two of Pentacles, you've got the Moon card, and you've got the Ace of Swords. Well, I mean, the first thing that really comes to mind here is not every single thing, first of all, not every single hobby that we have has to be monetized. Some things can literally just be for us to enjoy and can just give us the experience of what it is to enjoy, to enjoy life, to have a pleasurable experience. The other thing that comes up here as well, not everything that brings us joy has to cost money, right? It doesn't always have to be a transaction. And this might be a time where you start to understand or realize who in your partnerships over the course of a lifetime have given you those transactional relationships. It's like, okay, yes, you're here for me or whatever, but it always seems to come at a price, and I don't know whether I'm interested in paying that price anymore. So this could be a really powerful moment. I will also say, when it comes to money and finances and resources, even though this isn't necessarily a resource or a finance orientated transit, it may help you understand where you have undervalued or undermined your own worth in some way. And this month it will see you really go into town on correcting that. Okay, so the next transit that I want to explore for you, so that's on the 12th of April. On the 15th of April, we're going to have a grand water trine, right? So we've got Mars in Cancer, we're going to have Luna in Scorpio, and obviously we've got this whole friggin' conglomerate of energies here in the sign of Pisces. This is creating a spiritual thread that feels as if it's really kind of gently pulling you forward. Mars and the Moon aren't in their most comfortable signs, but what I will say to you is they are in mutual reception, right? The Moon in Scorpio is in Mars's sign, Mars in Cancer is in the Moon sign. So these two, even if they're not necessarily comfortable in those signs, they are actually speaking to each other in a way where they understand each other's language well enough to make this flow. And the fact that it's moving in a grand water trine, I wouldn't usually use the Moon to talk about a transit like this, but because it is such a powerful because it is, first of all, we've got the mutual reception between the Moon and Mars, so that part of it makes it important, and also the fact that it's such a big load of energy in Pisces that's going to be trined with all of this. I thought it was really worth mentioning, especially because a grand water trine helps something flow. Where you've had maybe stagnant emotions, where maybe you've had past issues or hurts or wounds, maybe where you've had really powerful realizations and you don't really know how you feel about it, this is kind of like the emotional laxative that you need in order to allow this to move forward in some way. Mars and the Moon aren't necessarily comfortable in these signs, but I really do like it for strength and wisdom and clarity. It's a time really for emotional peace and resilience, right? And if your heart sort of like if your heart knows something that your mind hasn't caught up to yet, this will be where you start to really understand sort of what that actually looks like. Um, the other thing that I want to say is trust what your feelings are showing you, because they're leading you exactly where it is that you need to go at this moment in time. For this, you've got the Death card, so it will bring a completion with the Six of Pentacles, and maybe this is a time where you release some sort of burden, right? Maybe this is something that you have felt has been somewhat karmic. Maybe this is where you say to yourself, you know what, I think I'm finally done sort of paying for or beating myself up over ... Now, remember, the Death card is endings, completions, and culminations, and the Six of Pentacles usually shows up when a karmic debt is about to be repaid. And you've got all of this under or connected to the Page of Pentacles, which means this is likely to unfold in a very practical sort of sense. This is across your water houses, right? The water signs and the water houses, the 4th, the 8th, and the 12th. This is where the stuff really tends to be stored, right? Like when we talk about our quote unquote stuff, like this is usually where you find it. It's in these three houses in particular, because they're deep. They are, liminal, unsort of, not just liminal, but they're the unseen or unspoken spaces in the chart as well. So powerful stuff. What's really interesting is the fact that this is going to play out in a very practical sense. So it may be in a financial sense. It could be on a home and living situation sense. It could also be in relation to something coming up from the past and you deciding to go in a direction that maybe gets some resistance from people around you, but it's like you're hell-bent on doing it your way anyway. Just like a proper Aries, right? A nice little stutter there. Right, so on the 18th of April, Mars, your ruling planet, is finally going to come back into the sign of Leo. This is really welcome news for you. One, because it's no longer squaring anything that you have in Aries. Two, because it's going to start to trine everything that you have in Aries. And three, because Mars enjoys being in fire signs. It knows how to cope with that energy. Mars finally returning to Leo is marking the completion of a spiritual surgery that began back in November of 2024. Now, before we get to that, I do want to say this is happening in your 5th house, right? Where Leo for you, it occupies the 5th house. That self expression, your joy, your creativity, your entrepreneurial endeavors, if you are so inclined. But the 5th house also rules your athletic ability, and also your because the 3rd house is prowess, but the 5th house is more sort of like physical prowess, if that makes sense. Your 5th house also represents pleasure, right? Like all the things that bring us pleasure, like hobbies and crafts and things that we learn, things that we enjoy doing, and also things that we create. Your 5th house is also children, so if you have them, this could be a time where they are sort of either more on the mind, or something is sort of more a central focus with or for them at this time. So all things to consider. Now, Mars, obviously for you, rules your body, but it also rules your 8th house of other people's money, finances, resources, taxes, loans, death, debts, all of that kind of taboo stuff. And so coming into the 5th house, this could be a lot more of a sexual energy for some of you. You might feel like, with Mars in the 4th house in Cancer, you were all in the feels and you just really weren't up for it. Well, now you could be, maybe you're getting a powerful case of the hornies where you just want to jump somebody's bones. That's possible, but it could also be that you start getting more active, more proactive about your physical hobbies. Maybe start running, maybe take something back up. it won't cover new ground until we get sort of a little bit further, because Mars went retrograde at I believe it was like 6 degrees of Leo. So, you know, it's at this moment in time, this is giving you a chance to integrate and heal the wound of the spiritual surgery that's just taken place. And the reason I say this is because Mars crossing the barrier of 0 degrees of Leo was the first sort of instance where we had the 0 degree point of Aries being activated from November. And from then on, it's been relentless, where that 0 degree of Aries has just constantly been bombarded. Now, if you kind of are thinking to yourself, this sounds familiar, you will know this if you watched my Universal 9-year video. If you haven't, it is a long one, so I do urge you, like on a day where you've got time and you can spend a good hour or so just sitting and listening, grab a brew, grab some snacks or whatever and just listen. This would be a really good video for you to watch. There's a link for it in the description box anyway, so you can check that out at your leisure. But it will really help you make sense of this idea of the spiritual surgery that I'm talking about. Mars ruling your energy, your drive, your passion. Mars is you because it is your ruling planet. And it moves into a fellow fire sign, so you're going to feel more like yourself than you have in months. Your competitive edge returns, your energy levels are going to start to come back and to soar. However, don't rush too quickly, right? Think of this as the final stage of recovery. You've just been stitched back together. Don't tear the seams or the stitches by overdoing it, right? This transit is also going to activate your 8th house of other people's money, which potentially brings financial opportunities or gains from investments, because the 5th house is investments. 8th house, which Mars rules for you, also represents investments, taxes, you know, all of that. You know, these two in the 5th house is speculative endeavors and the stock markets, but the 8th house would be like investing money for the long term. So there's definitely like that being highlighted as well. And then let's be honest, Aries, it's also a sexy and passionate time, right? So if you're single, this could be an ideal moment to find somebody who absolutely relights your fire, darling. With this, you've got the 4 of Wands, you've got the 7 of Pentacles, and you've got the Queen of Swords. So this is a re-establishing of self, but you're doing this in a way that is slow and steady. And because you've got that 7 of Pentacles, this is about you getting really clear about what you're invested in, what is worth the fight, and more importantly, where it is that you need to get your T's sort of crossed and your I's dotted, as it were. And I actually like this for that, because it looks like you're doing all the right things when it comes to, you know, making sure that everything is where it sort of needs to be, as it were. And then finally, the last transit that I want to talk about for you will be Venus, Saturn, and the North Node coming into a conjunction in the sign of Pisces, right? Again, in that 12th house. Now, this is where Venus is exalted, but also Saturn has Saturn has a good amount of dignity here as well, because Saturn exalts in the 12th house. So, you know, Saturn's doing good work here, but so is Venus doing good work here. And the fact that they're coming into a conjunction with the North Node at the same time is pretty powerful. It's a rare and powerful moment and a powerful alignment in your 12th house. It's ushering in closure, release, and a really profound sense of spiritual growth. Venus here is offering better sleep, better rest, or at the very least, the need for those things. Whereas she might also reintroduce past lovers or potentially past vices, who knows, right into your life, reminding you to reflect and to realign. Whereas Saturn, which rules your career, group associations, and long-term goals, and the North Node, that fated event kind of energy, suggests that someone or something from the past, 12th house past, right, could offer the resources or the clarity, resources, Venus, clarity, Saturn, right, They could offer the resources or the clarity that you need to make a significant dream or a significant purchase a reality at this moment in time. This alignment of these three is going to might bring the release of a long-standing burden, allowing you to step into the present with more clarity, more ease. And even if things feel like they're financially stuck for you right now, this, like, just trust that this is the precursor to the big shifts ahead. Justice or fairness might surface now, especially reaffirming the future is being built by releasing what no longer really serves or sort of assists you. You've got the Three of Wands for this, so you've got to look beyond your current situation. You've got the Queen of Cups, so this is a helpful feminine influence, and you've got the Five of Pentacles. Something that you lose or have to release over the course of this month will eventually, and I say eventually because you probably won't feel it at the time, it will eventually bring a whole new sense of freedom. In the here and now, however, it may not feel like that, right? And that is often the case. This may be a time, it's not necessarily, it doesn't have to be a death or anything like that, but it could be a time where you are sort of starting to realize, like, wow, you know what? We are this far down the line and there's only so much that I can do, with this or in this space or in this sphere in some regard. So really powerful stuff. I'll be intrigued to hear your ideas and your feedback on this one. Now, on the 13th of the month, we have the full moon in the sign of Taurus. Where are you, Taurus? So we'll have the full moon. We will have the new moon. The full moon will be in Libra. Where are you? There we go. Right. So on the 13th of the month, we've got the Libra full moon. This is in your 7th house of partnerships, relationships, business contracts, negotiations. This could be a time where you're finally wrapping something up or putting the finishing touches on a collaboration, a connection, or even a contract of some sort. So it's kind of like where you're seeing something into being, but in like a connective kind of way. Your message for this is the Gate 29 and perseverance. And so the message behind this is, while it may have looked easy, or you've made it look easy, Aries, it's been anything but. And what this tells me more than anything else is what you've learned about yourself throughout this process, I think has actually been very helpful for you in some regard. And I love it. I think this is absolutely brilliant. And then when it comes to on the 27th of the month, we have the new moon in the sign of Taurus, which will be at 7 degrees of Taurus. This is a new moon in your 2nd house of money, finances, resources. This is a fresh start for your money. It's a fresh start for your values, how you see yourself, what is worth the time, the effort, the energy in your life, and how you kind of feel about that. And for this, wow, look at that. You've got the Gate 54 and ambition. This is a money card, and it basically says that this is a time where you start to pull together all of the inner resources to go after what it is that you want, to turn your knowledge and your wisdom into money, into finances. So it's kind of like you're doing a bit of a Rumpelstiltskin, right? Something that you're learning or taking on board now becomes a money spinner of some sort. So with that said, I wish you an abundance of all of that good stuff. Have a fantastic month. Let me know in the comments how it shapes up. Take care, and I'll see you soon.